Hello, this is Dr. Kenneth Augustus Walker, and I'm so very excited to be discussing leadership tonight with students from Beulah Heights University. I'm going to give you a chance to get in and log in with us. I'm actually on the road today. I'm traveling up to Elberton, Georgia, and I stopped to talk to you guys about leadership today. I certainly want to thank Dr. Angelita Howard for asking me to be her guest tonight to talk to you guys about leadership. First of all, let me tell you how proud I am of you and how excited I am that you are getting theological education and that you're also getting training in leadership. The challenges of the church today are very, very important, so you're preparing yourselves. Now, I know this is the first time for many of you on Periscope. Many of you, this is your first time on Periscope. What I want you to do is, at the bottom where it says say something, you can type your questions later on. You can ask me questions, when we get to the end of the lecture today. So down at the bottom, you will see a place that says say something. So you can type your questions in at the end of the telecast. So again, if you're just joining us, when you get to the very end, when I get to the end of the lecture, you can type at the bottom of your screen, say something in that little line, and you can ask me your questions. So again, I want to welcome each of you, and greetings everyone. Yes, I want to welcome each of you to the Periscope tonight. Periscope is an incredible new technology that I broadcast on daily. I use it for inspirational, motivational type of things and recaps from Sunday's sermon. You're more than welcome, Mr. Ramos. So I want to get started with tonight's lecture. Tonight's lecture is about leadership. And what I want to talk to you about, the three pillars of leadership. Let me repeat that. The three pillars of leadership. Leadership is very, very important. You have been trusted by God. You've been trusted by a church or an organization to lead. And you cannot take that lightly. Leadership is very important. Leadership is the quintessential characteristic that you must possess for greatness and to groom others for greatness. So let's talk about what those three pillars are. The first pillar of leadership is integrity. Integrity. You have to have the moral integrity. And again, I know this is new for many of you on Periscope, but if I say something that you like, just touch the screen and it'll put a heart up. Or if you want to comment while I'm talking, I can see you and you can hear me, but I can't see you. I mean, you can see me, but I can't see you. So I can see your comments and I can see your heart. So you can tap the screen for heart. So the first pillar of leadership is integrity. You have to have the moral integrity to be a leader. I think one of the worst things that happens now in leadership, especially in the African American church experience, is the lack of integrity in leadership. People will tell you one thing and do something else. Their words don't mean anything. You know, I'm old school. I don't look it, but I'm 49. I come from an age and an era where it says your word is your bond. And too many people that you deal with now, their word means nothing in ministry. And I think that is a shame and a disgrace to the gospel of Jesus Christ, to the nature of the church, to the cross of Calvary. So you cannot lead without integrity. You have to have integrity. If you say the people who you are leading, they're looking at you. They're watching how you act. They're watching what you say. They're watching what you do. So you cannot call yourself a leader or be a leader without a sense of integrity, without having some morals, without having some principles. You know, too many people want to lead because of the glory that comes with leading. Yeah, there's a lot of glory associated with it, but you've got to work. You've got to have integrity. You've got to have principles. You've got to have morals. You've got to have boundaries. You can't just be anything or do anything. Integrity brings respect to your leadership. Integrity brings balance to your leadership. You know, I was having a conversation with Dr. Howard yesterday after church. There are many gifted leaders in churches. There are many gifted leaders in institutions. But to have the gift without grace is a tragedy. Let me say that. You can have a gift, but you got to have grace to go with the gift. Grace is what keeps you humble. Grace is what keeps you with integrity. Grace is what keeps you honest. Grace is what makes you stay focused. So it doesn't matter how gifted you are. If you don't have the integrity and you don't have the grace in which to operate, then you're just spinning your wheels in dirt. And eventually, people are going to discover that you don't have the integrity to lead. They're going to discover that you don't have any grace. And I think that one of the greatest deterrents to having integrity is the ego. Because the ego sees success, it sees fame, it sees all of these things. And when you don't have integrity in leadership, you take shortcuts. And shortcuts will derail your dreams. Let me tell you this. Taking shortcuts will derail your dreams. The only place that success comes before leadership is in the dictionary. And that's because S comes before W. So let's look at this first pillar of leadership. Integrity. Integrity. Johnny Cochran used to always say, integrity or character is what you are when no one is looking. Okay? So you have to have public and private integrity. It's kind of hard if you don't have private integrity then to try to display some public integrity, at the same time. So the first pillar of leadership, if you're going to be successful as a leader of your church, your organization, your business, or a group, is that you must possess integrity. You've got to be honest. Your word must mean something to the people that you lead. If your word doesn't mean anything to the people that you lead, you're going to simply mislead them. And I think another deterrent to integrity is not just ego, but hanging around people who do not possess integrity. If the people in your circle have no integrity, by osmosis, you can co-opt their behavior. By osmosis, you can end up by acting like they act and making the decisions they make. So I think you have to do an integrity check. And in that integrity check, you need to look to make sure. You need to make sure that the people in your circle are men and women of integrity. People who cheat their way through life, people who lie their way through life, people who fake their way through life, you're going to get exposed at some point. Let me tell you, one of my favorite movies as a child, and even to this day, is The Wizard of Oz. Dorothy, the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, and the Lion. They all believe that the wizard has his power to give them what they want. For the Tin Man, it will be a heart. For the Lion, it will be courage. For the Scarecrow, it will be brains. For Dorothy, it would be to go back to Kansas. But the wizard is hiding behind the curtain, right? Toto pulls up the curtain, and guess what happens? When Toto pulls up the curtain, they discover there is not a wizard behind the curtain, but it's simply a man. It's simply a man behind the curtain who is pretending to be something that he is not. So if you don't operate in integrity, some Toto is going to come by you and pull up the curtain, and everybody you're leading going to find out that you are not who you say that you are. Don't promise people things that you cannot deliver. Get out of competing with other leaders around you. You have to simply work out of the toolbox that you've been blessed with. So I think that competition is another attack on integrity, because I think sometimes that preachers or leaders or pastors or ministers, you feel like you're comparing yourself to somebody else in ministry, and then you want to keep up with them, and you see it as a competition. No. You were given by the God who called you to ministry, to leadership. You were given a toolbox to operate out of, and you have to operate out of your toolbox. You can't operate out of someone else's. Remember this story I just told you. Everybody thought that this is a wizard. Toto pulls up the curtain and they find out it's no wizard. It's simply a man back there. So integrity means that I operate in honesty. I operate with morals. I operate with truth. I operate with the good of the whole. This is how you can tell if your leader doesn't. People can tell when you're leading and it's all about you. If you're not interested in the good of the whole, then you don't have integrity. You have to lead. You can't lead cliques in your church, cliques in your organization. You have to lead everyone. So a person of integrity takes the time to get to know who he or she is leading. So the first pillar of leadership is integrity. You've got to have the moral courage, moral principles, and moral behavior to lead. The second pillar to leadership is innovation. Let me repeat that. The second pillar of leadership is innovation. To be innovative means you got to be creative. You've got to be able to breathe freshness into your organization. You cannot operate in a technological age with a dinosaur mentality. You cannot operate in the technological age with a dinosaur mentality. So your leadership requires you to be innovative. It requires you to be creative. It requires you to reinvent yourself to market your leadership ability to the people that you're leading. If you believe in the past only and live in the past, you're going to lead in the past and you will get passed by. Passed. Let me repeat that. If you only believe in the past and you think in the past and you lead based on past principles, you're going to get passed, Passed, passed by. One of my favorite scriptures is in Isaiah when he says, behold, I will do a new thing. If you're going to be a leader, a great impacting leader, you got to do new things. You got to try new ideas. Okay, sorry about that technological glitch there. But if you're going to lead, what you've got to do is you've got to be innovative. You got to be creative. You can't lead people to new heights by doing old things. Isaiah says, behold, I will do a new thing. So God's revelations are new. They're fresh. Okay. You don't change the message. The message of the gospel stays the same, but you change your approach to it, how you package it, how you unload it, how you give it to someone. So you've got to get to a point of being innovative with your leadership. I'm going to repeat this because some of you are just coming back in the room. If you think in the past, and you make decisions based on the past only, then you're going to get passed, Passed, by. Things do not grow without innovation. Things do not grow without creativity. I was reading an article in the New York Times over the weekend about high blood pressure. And it was saying that the ideal goal for all these years had been to get the blood pressure to 140. That was a safe blood pressure. Well, they commissioned a study over the last 3 years. They stopped the study this past week because they found out with the trial period that 120 is now the new ideal that will cut 1/4 of heart attacks, strokes, and death rates. Now, just think if they had not been innovative in this study, we would still be using old data in the 21st century. So you got to challenge yourself tonight. Am I an innovative leader? Am I afraid to get out of my comfort zone? And I think one of the deterrents to people being innovative and creative in leadership is we stay in our comfort zones. We're afraid to get outside of the box. Innovative people think outside of the box. They live outside of the box. They make decisions outside of the box. And they not only think outside the box, but they take action steps. So you got to ask yourself tonight, on a scale of 1 to 10, how innovative am I? It's safe. It's safe to not be innovative. But guess what? You can never be great. You can be average. Average people are not innovative. You know what average means? Average means you're the best of the sorriest or the sorriest of the best. Average singers do not win Grammys. Average actors and actresses do not win Oscars. So you've got to be innovative. Innovative means that I'm thinking different. I'm thinking different. I'm making different decisions. Even if you look at your ministry or your job or wherever you are, it becomes stagnant unless you're innovative, unless you're creative. Do not be afraid of creativity. Do not be afraid of getting outside the box. And innovative people, innovative leaders relate to the people that are leading at that level. Jesus knew everybody that he talked to didn't go to the synagogue. So guess what? When he talked to carpenters about the kingdom of heaven, his innovative tool was using the Okay, we have another technological challenge. But when Jesus talks about building, when he talks to a carpenter, he talks about the difference between building a house on the sand versus building on the rock. That's innovation. That's innovation. So what tools are you using to show that you're innovative? What creative tools are you using? Right now, you cannot lead without having some knowledge of the internet. Right now, we're using technology, Periscope. I'm in a different city. I'm not even in Atlanta. I'm talking to you live on a video on an app called Periscope. How innovative is that? So leaders who thrive, leaders who grow, they grasp, they cling to innovation. No matter what age you are, you can be innovative. My 91-year-old pastor emeritus, Dr. James Hightower, he's 91. This guy texts me every morning. He has a smartphone. He just got his first smartphone a month ago. He has an iPad that he's had for a year and a half. Dr. Hightower is 91 and he Googles. Dr. Hightower is 91 and he watches YouTube. Dr. Hightower is 91 and he watches his sermons on live stream. So you mean to tell me as a leader, you're going to let a 91-year-old pastor emeritus be more innovative than you? So how are you embracing innovation? And look, read books about innovation. Google YouTube videos about innovation. Google the word innovation. Look at what people are doing. I like TED Talks. I look at TED Talks. You must be innovative in order to keep things going. Some of you are watching me on an Android. Some of you are watching me on an Apple iPhone. Guess what Apple did? They just released the iPhone 6S, and the iPhone 6 just came out last year. Guess what else? Guess what else happens? They released the Samsung Galaxy Note 4 last year. This year they got the Note 5 out. You know what they're doing? They're using innovation to get people to buy in. So how can you, as a pastor, can you use innovation to lead better? So don't be afraid of innovation. Innovation will grow your leadership. It will grow your base of people that you're leading. It will grow your organization. It will grow your institution. But you must get into this innovation game. You have to play the innovation game. You can't say, well, you know what? I don't know how to use this technology. No, learn how to do it. Get your child or your grandchild or your niece or your nephew. They'll show you how to be innovative. The age in which we live, you're going to be able to lead not just in a classroom or a church, but you got to do what we're doing now, this technology. Look at you. You see me wagging my finger on this little thing. I'm sitting on 85 in my truck with Dr. Hightower. You see Dr. Hightower? Say hello, Dr. Hightower.
Hello.
91-year-olds sitting with me. We're using innovation in a truck. We're sitting in a truck using innovation. So you've got to embrace innovation if you're going to be a good leader. So let's recap. The first pillar of leadership is integrity. The second pillar is innovation. The third pillar is inspiration. Let me repeat that. The third pillar of leadership is inspiration. How do you inspire the people that you're leading? What is it about you that when they see you coming, they're ready to go to work? What is it about you that sets their soul, their spirit, and their minds on fire? You've got to have a little charisma. That's what we mean by inspiration. You have to have a little charisma in there with you to be able to inspire people. You see, leadership is not about, not yet. Somebody just said, Dr. Hightower, you look much, Minister Dunn says you look much young. He's 91. Leadership is not about you. Leadership is about what you make of the people who you are leading. So how do you inspire people? How do you make people go to war for you? How do you make people mortgage their all for your institution, what you believe in? How do you make people sacrifice to because of what you're doing? So if you can't inspire people, nobody's going to follow you. Dr. Hightower, someone just said you look absolutely great. Okay, class, are y'all more interested in me lecturing or interested in Dr. Hightower? Tell him hello, Dr. Hightower. Tell him how long you led a church.
65 years.
He led for 65 years. Now he's 91, but he's still inspiring people. So what is it about you that inspires people? What is it that when people see you walk into the room, they like, you know what, my leader is here, I'm ready to go? What is it in you that resurrects the deadness in them? Let me repeat that. How do you inspire the deadness in other people and resurrect them to go to work for you? You cannot be a leader and be boring. You cannot be a leader and not be inspirational. So then, Dr. Walker, how do I become inspirational? Well, number one, I approach everything by prayer. Pray about, Lord, fill me with inspiration. Then read books about inspiration. Listen to inspirational videos. You know, there's so much stuff out there that you don't have to go and create it. You can read it and co-op it without plagiarizing and making it your own. But you have to inspire people. Martin Luther King inspired people. My greatest and favorite civil rights leader, my favorite and greatest civil rights leader was Adam Clayton Powell Jr. This man inspired the entire northern part of the United States, inspired. Hey, we had another technological thing here. But look, Adam Clayton Powell inspires. Uh, Martin Luther King and Malcolm do all the marching and stuff. But Adam is inspired and gets all the bills passed in Congress to create the Civil Rights Act. You wouldn't have had the Voting Rights Act without him pushing President Kennedy and President Lyndon Baines Johnson. So in your local setting, how do you inspire people? In your local church, how do you inspire people? In your local organization, how do you inspire people? How do you motivate people? You see, you got to stop comparing yourself to Bishop Jakes, Bishop Paul Morton, Bishop Walker. Inspire where you are. You've been given a different toolbox than your classmates. All of you in this class with Dr. Howard, but you have different toolboxes. So how do you use what's in your toolbox to inspire other people? How do you light a fire in other people's I like Adele. She had this song Rolling in the Deep. She said, lighting a fire in my heart. How do you light a fire in the people's heart to sell out for you, to sell out for your vision? See, first of all, if you're going to inspire people, you got to be inspirational yourself. You can't be dead, dry, and boring. If you don't believe in the thing that you're trying to sell to people, they will see that you don't believe in it. If you're bored by it, they're going to be bored by it. If you're not motivated by it, they're not going to be motivated by it. So you've got to be an inspirational leader. You've got to set people on fire. You don't have to be in their face, bomb, 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 bomb all the time. But it should be something about your leadership abilities and your leadership characteristics that inspires them to want to be there, there should be something about you and your inspiration that they don't want to miss a Sunday at church. They don't want to miss a Bible study. They don't want to miss the next big thing because you've inspired them. And you know when inspiration is most effective in the people you're leading? When they see it in you. If they see you excited about what you're trying to get them to buy into. If they see that you are enthusiastic. So let's look at these three pillars of leadership again. The first pillar of leadership is what? I'm going to see you guys paying attention. I want you to write down here where it says, say something. What's the first pillar of leadership? I need one of the students to type in the very first pillar of leadership that I talked about tonight. We're going to play Jeopardy until you get it in there. Right, integrity. The first pillar of leadership, thank you so much. That is Minister Dunn. Thank you, Minister Dunn. The first principle of leadership, or the first pillar, is integrity. You have to have moral character, moral courage, and moral integrity to get the job done. Okay? Melanie, thank you very much, too. Now, what's the second pillar of leadership? Type in the second pillar of leadership. Thank you, L. Baxter 04. What's the second pillar? I need you to type in the second pillar of leadership. Innovation, right. Now, innovation is so important because that's your creativity. When we're innovative, we're using new tools, we're using technology. Let me tell you something. When you're innovative, you've got to use everything in your arsenal to lead. Let me repeat that. When you're innovative, you've got to use everything in your arsenal to lead. Use your mind, use your intellect, use your soul, your spirit, your fire. You know what? When a plumber comes to your house, the plumber doesn't just have one tool in there to fix that sink. That plumber has a whole little suitcase of stuff. What's in your toolbox tonight? What's in your toolbox that makes you innovative? You got to identify what's in your toolbox that makes you innovative. What's the third pillar? Now you got the first pillar. The first pillar of leadership you told me was integrity. The second pillar of leadership you told me that was what? That was innovation. What's the third pillar of leadership? I'm going to wait till you type where it says type. Gonna play Jeopardy. Dun 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 dun. Dun. What's the third pillar of leadership, class? We know the first one is integrity. We know the second one is innovation. But what is the third one? Inspiration. Minister Don, thank you for paying attention. Inspiration. How do you inspire people? How do you get them motivated? How do you get them motivated? You know, Jesus drew crowds. Yeah, he worked the miracles. He taught the parables. He walked on the water. He raised the dead. But he was so inspirational in the way that he did it. You know, even the Pharisees said, never spoke a man like this, never make a man like that before. So what is it that makes you inspirational? If you're not inspirational, the people are going to see it. If you're dry and boring, the people are going to be dry and boring. And the organization that you're leading is going to be dry and boring. Now, what I want to do, I want to pause here to allow you to ask questions. Dr. Howard set it up so that you could ask me questions. So if you have a question about leadership, I know that she said there may even be questions about women in ministry. I'm open to answer any of your questions at this point. So just go down to the bottom of the screen and type your question in. Okay? Go to the bottom of the screen and type your question in if you have questions for me. And I hope this has been helpful to you. And while I'm waiting on you to get your questions for me, I'm going to repeat the three pillars of leadership. The first pillar of leadership is integrity. You got to have a moral character. You got to have a moral standards. The second one is innovation. And the third one, of course, is inspiration. I'm glad to know it's very helpful, Minister Dunn. So I need you guys, if you have students, if you have questions, now is your time to ask me questions. I know Dr. Howard said there may be questions about women in ministry, leadership, styles, whatever. Whatever your questions are, where it says say something, I need you to ask your questions. Dr. Howard, are you back in the room with us now? If this lecture was helpful to you, you can just type helpful. If you don't have any questions, and I would like to answer your questions, you can, what was the third pillar? The third pillar of leadership was inspiration. And I believe that is B. Corin, I can't see the name. The third pillar is inspiration, that you have to be an inspirational leader. The third pillar is inspiration. So you got to be able to inspire the people to follow you. You got to be able to make them motivated, make them have drive, put that drive. So again, we'll take questions, but if you lost your connection and just got back in, W. Bernstein says, leaders produces followers, followers produce leading. Can you expand on that? Yes, leaders produce followers. Well, if you are a good leader, that means people will buy into what you're doing. And when they buy into it, they believe in it. They're sold out for it. So a leader should develop followers. If your wife or your child or your spouse is the only one following your leadership, you're in trouble. So yes, leaders inspire people who follow. Glad you're loving this, Reverend Drew 29. So yes, leaders should inspire followers. Guess what? I'm glad you asked that question. Jesus takes 12 people, and minus Judas, 11 people turn up the world upside down. So Jesus produces leaders in the 11 apostles. And guess what? And I had to exegete this when I was at the ITC, the Interdenominational Theological Center. I had to exegete the passage when Jesus says, greater work shall you do if you believe in me. And that was from John. Jesus only traveled no more than 100 miles from his front door. The disciples went all over the world. So a leader produces followers who go ahead and carry out the leader's vision. Someone asked a question about they feeling lost. That came through too fast, so retype your question and I'll answer it. I think you were saying something about you're trying to be inspirational, but sometimes you feel lost. So go ahead and retype your question. So I'll entertain more questions. But yeah, Jesus, disciples did more work than Jesus. They went farther. Jesus never made it to Rome. Jesus never made it to Istanbul, Turkey. but the gospel is going around. How do you handle when a majority of the people are following you and others just won't no matter? You know what? You're not going to win everybody. There are going to be some people who do not follow you. But guess what? If you got the majority following you, you're heading in the right direction. And the person who asked that question, I didn't get your name. I want you to read John, the 6th chapter tonight. When Jesus works all these miracles, everybody's following him. And then when he talks about eating my flesh and drinking my blood, they walked away. They walk away from him. And then he turns to Peter and he says, oh, y'all going to leave me too, dude? He says, no, man, we're going to stay because you got the words of life and death. The scary part of that scripture is Jesus doesn't go chase them down. He worked with who followed him. So you got to work with the people who will follow you. You're going to always have antagonists in your crowd. But you know what the blessing of the people who don't follow you is? That you will stay on your knees praying and thanking God for the people who are following you. You're never going to have 100% participation with nobody in no organization. So if you got a majority of people following you, let them try to win some of those other people over. Do not exert your energy, but be nice to them, speak to them, how you doing, but keep it moving and never engage in the negativity. But realize you're not going to win everybody. Jesus lost a lot of people. You know what another scary story is about that? The story of the rich young ruler. Because he thinks it's a moral imperative when he begins to tell Jesus, you know, I didn't cheat on my wife. I pay my tithes. I do this. I didn't go to the strip club last night. Jesus said, good, dude. Sell everything you got, give it to the poor, and come hang with us. The dude walks away. That ain't the scary part. The scary part is Jesus does not go and chase him. So don't get in the people chasing business. Stay in the people leading business. Oh, let me say that again. Don't get in the people chasing business. Stay in the people leading business. If you're leading the majority, ma'am or sir, whoever asked me that question, you're headed in the right direction. Okay, do we have any more questions? I'll be glad to answer. Dr. Howard, are you still with us or are you still traveling? Any more questions here on leadership, our lecture? While I'm waiting on your questions to pop up on the screen, I'm going to repeat the 3 pillars of leadership. The 3 pillars of leadership are integrity, innovation, and inspiration. Integrity brings respect, yes. Because when you have integrity, you're operating in an honest way, and people respect honesty. People respect honesty. How do I encourage myself as a leader? The first thing you need to do to encourage yourself as a leader is to know that God knew what he was doing when he asked you to be a leader. And you're going to have frustrating moments, but that's fine. He got frustrated. Elijah was so frustrated he wanted to commit suicide. I mean, he told God, take my life. He sat under the tree. And you know what? God said, sleep it off. And one way that you inspire yourself as a leader, don't try to do everything and be everything. Work within the toolbox God has given you. If God didn't tell you to write a book, don't stress yourself out writing a book. If God told you to lead the 50 or 15 people you're pastoring, lead them. So that's how you do it. And I think another way that you inspire yourself is give yourself credit in working. It's going well. Okay, another question. Thank you for joining us, Melanie. You're back in the room. I saw you come in. Any more questions on leadership tonight? And I hope that I've said something that will inspire you, motivate you to work through those 3 pillars. Inspiration. Thank you so much for saying great there. Inspiration, integrity, and innovation. And while I'm waiting on questions, you're following me now for this class, but I want you to, anytime I pop up in Periscope, I want you to follow me because I come on every day except for Sunday. I come on with inspirational stuff or, Q&A and all of that. So I want you to be able to follow me. And I don't always wear a suit, shirt, and tie. I only did this for Dr. Howard's class tonight. I normally just have on a Super Friend or a Batman shirt. I'm a very down-to-earth guy. Very, very, very common. Any more questions tonight? Any questions about leadership? Or any comments you want to make? Any feedback you want to give? Any feedback or any comments you want to give? And I really hope that this has really been a blessing to you tonight and that it has been inspirational for you. Any more questions? To be an individual in leadership as a leader, you should be one to influence the people. Right. You have to be able to influence people. Thank you, MP77. You have to be able to influence people. Leadership is influence. Martin Luther King influenced those people to walk across that Selma Bridge. Sojourner Truth. Harriet Tubman, she influenced them to go in the Underground Railroad. Steve Jobs influenced you to buy an iPhone or iPad. Okay? It's wise to keep other people in leadership position when they are not for you. No. It is dangerous to keep people in leadership who are against you. That's a very good question. That's a very good question. People who are against you, get them out of leadership. Let me tell you, I'm a student of Imperial Roman history. The greatest mistake that Julius Caesar made when they were going through, after he takes out Sulla and all these guys, Mark Antony told him to get rid of all of his enemies. He said, no, Brutus is going to work with me. He's going to work with me. Guess who was one of the last people to stab Julius Caesar in the back? It was Brutus. Shakespeare immortalizes Julius Caesar in the play when he says et tu Brute, meaning in the Latin, you too Brutus. So you cannot have a Brutus or a Judas on your leadership team. Let me repeat that. You cannot have a Judas or a Brutus on your leadership team. If you're uncomfortable with somebody on your leadership team and you know they're not for you, man, you need to pay attention to that. You need to ask God to show you how to transition them out. Don't be nasty to them. What I like to do is call it reassigning your gifts. You go to them and say, you know what? You have worked hard, you've been decent, but we need to reassign your gift to another area. Oh! Reassign your gift to another area. Because sooner or later, they're going to stick it in your back. And a problem that could have been prevented 5 years from now, you're going to have to deal with it because you didn't get them off the team. You may say, well, they're my best tither, they're my best. Look, the number one tither in my church left, and more people start tithing. When God has called you into leadership, never put all your eggs in one basket. So if you're uncomfortable with somebody in leadership, get rid of them. You know that Beyonce song, to the left, let them go to the left. And you call it reassigning of your gifts. Reassigning of your gifts. Any more? I'm loving this. Y'all got me on 85 North on the way to a meeting. I pulled over to get a Wi-Fi signal just so I could talk to you. I'll take a couple more questions. You're welcome, Reverend Drew 29. Just to make sure I'm connected, did you receive my question about influence? Yes, I answered your question about influence. I said that a leader should influence people. And I talked about how Martin Luther King influenced people. I talked about how Harriet Tubman influenced people. I talked about how Steve Jobs influenced people. Bill Gates. Most of y'all got a computer at home. Everybody laughed at Bill Gates, but he influenced you to buy that computer. You're very welcome, Kim WI08. You're very welcome. Does 08 mean you're AKA 08? So next question. I know the class stops at 8:30, but I'm gonna let you guys out right at 8. So go right ahead and ask more questions. Look, I've enjoyed this as much as you did. I'm gonna let Dr. Hightower say hi as you get your questions. Tell him hello.
Hello. Hope you're enjoying yourselves.
How do you rate the leaders in the 21st century? That question, how do I rate leaders? Are you talking about church leaders, business leaders, or what? Be more specific. You cannot be a leader without influence. Right. You cannot be a leader without influence. If nobody's following you but your wife, your husband, your children, and your dog and your cat, you're not a leader, okay? You're not a leader. So if you're in an organization, somebody needs to be able to follow you. This is extremely helpful. Thank you, GFriend732. Okay, if you have some more questions there. You have more questions, I'll answer those questions. I'll be glad to answer those questions. And thank you for asking those questions. Those were some very, very good questions. The person who asked me how do I rate leadership in the 21st century, are you talking about church leadership, business leadership, what kind of leadership? I'll be glad to answer that question for you. I'll be glad to answer. You guys are asking some good questions. In fact, you're asking some great questions. So come back at me with another question. We'll take 3 more questions. Dr. Howard, were you able to get back in the room? We'll take 3 more questions. You guys have asked some great questions. Very, very, very good questions. Very good questions. So if you have some more questions, I will take them. Dr. Howard, your students, they give me great feedback. They're asking great questions. Now, while you're waiting on your questions, let's go back. Let's do a review. I need you to type the first pillar of leadership on the screen. Go ahead. Right there where it says say something, type that in. Type that in. Type that in. You can type in where it says say something. What's the first pillar of leadership? I want to make sure. Integrity, very good. What's the second pillar? Once you have lost the respect of your leader, how should I handle it? Well, it depends on what made you lose the respect. You might want to go to your leader and talk to him one-on-one and tell him how you feel. Don't attack them, but tell them your true feelings. And then you got to make a decision whether you want to stay under that leadership if you get out. Yes, innovation was number 2. Number 2 is innovation. So the first pillar of leadership is integrity. The second one is innovation. What's the third pillar of leadership? What's the third one? The first one was integrity. The second one was innovation. The third one is what? Inspiration. Way to go. How you continue to inspire and influence others in the face of discouragement and pressure. Well, you got to be encouraged. You got to encourage yourself. You got to have people praying for you. And you got to believe that what God called you to got to bring you through. Remember, Gideon does not think he can lead no army. When that angel tells him he's a mighty man of valor, he said, look, dude, you got the wrong person. But guess what? God continues to work with him. Just because something is hard for you, God doesn't give up on you. God never changes your assignment because you lose inspiration. I'm a pastor, and I lose inspiration sometimes. Dr. Hightower, 91, he inspires me. He says, Walker, hang in there. So you got to have a good cheering section. You know what my favorite scripture is about inspiration and people inspiring you? In Hebrews, whoever writes Hebrews says, seeing that we are encompassed about such a great cloud of witnesses. Do you know you have people in heaven cheering you on? Moses is pulling for you. Elijah is pulling for you. Jesus is pulling for you. Okay? So you can encourage yourself by knowing you're not the only one that's having a hard time. All leaders go through these periods of where we don't feel we're worthy, where we don't feel we're going to make it, where we feel like it ain't going to work out, but you got to inspire yourself. You know what? David said, my foot almost slipped. David says, my favorite saying by David is Psalm 34 and 16 and 19. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but he delivers them out of them all. You're going to have afflictions. So, keep going. Do you believe great leaders are born or great leaders are developed? I believe there's a combination. I think some men and women like Martin Luther King, like Sojourner Truth, all these great women and men we know, some of those are born leaders. Then some are developed. But the most gifted and the most unique, they're destined to come into this world and lead. Bill Gates was born to lead in technology. Steve Jobs, born to lead. Adam Clayton Powell, born to lead. Okay, Hillary Clinton, born to lead. Now, whether she becomes president, I don't know, but she's a born leader. So, yes, some people are born, but even born people have to have those skills developed. Then some people develop into good leaders. So you have two types of leaders, born leaders and those who are gifted. But to stay sharp, you got to still have those 3 pillars. Remember, I talked to you at the beginning of this lecture. It's one thing to have gifts, but the other thing to have grace. You got to have grace and gifts. You got to have grace and gifts. You can't have either or. You got to have grace and gifts. Okay? You got to have grace and gifts. You can't just have one. You can be the most gifted leader in the world, but if you don't have grace, it's going to blow up in your face. You're not going to be able to pull it off. Okay, I'll take one more question here. Okay, any more questions? Dr. Howard, I want to thank you so much for letting me lecture to your class. This has just been great for me. That's right. Grace and gifts, Minister Don. You can have all the gifts. How would you? Okay, what I mean by grace, thank you for asking me that, Melanie, BHU. By grace, I mean you're a great leader. You have all the gifts, but be humble with it. Be respectful. Don't have the big head. Don't think that the sun rises and sets on your head. That's what I mean about grace. Be respectful. Operate in integrity. Thank you. I don't know if I've been excellent, but I appreciate you thinking so. So that's what I mean by grace. You have the gift to play the drum. Let me just be honest. I had to fire the drummer at our church 2 weeks ago. The drummer is one of the most gifted people I've ever met, but he had no grace. He was always combative with people or getting to this and getting to that. So he thought that the church couldn't go on without it. He had no grace but got all the gifts. Had to fire him and we got a new drummer, and he got all the grace in the world. You got all the grace in the world. What's the last pillar of leadership? You gave me the first one was integrity. You gave me the second one, which was inspiration. No, you gave me the second one was innovation. What's the third one? What's the third pillar of leadership? I need you to type it. The first one was integrity. Second, innovation. What's the last pillar? Because I don't want to end the broadcast without you knowing what that third pillar was. Inspiration. That's right. So, my wrap up to you. I want you to lead with great integrity. I want you to lead with great innovation. And last of all, I want you to lead with great inspiration. So go out there, whether you have 5 people you're leading or 5,000, the pillars are the same. Integrity, innovation, inspiration. Thank you so much for letting me lecture to your class, Dr. Howard, tonight. And I hope you guys will continue on Periscope with my regular time tonight. On Facebook, follow me as a friend, Kenneth Augustus Walker. Facebook, I'm Kenneth Augustus Walker. I'm the senior pastor of the Greater Elizabeth Bible Church here in Atlanta, www.greaterelizabethbiblechurch.org. Guys, look, I'm so glad you're in school getting sharper and smarter so you can become great leaders. The world is hungry for leaders. Churches, communities, neighborhoods, they need your leadership. So go be a leader of integrity, go be a leader of innovation, and be a leader of inspiration. Thank you so much, Beulah Heights, BHU, baby.